One bit of paragraph formatting that can really affect the readability of your documents is line spacing. That's what we're going to look at right now as we continue working with our No Obstacles HR document. If you've jumped to this lesson, need to get caught up, go to the Chapter 4 folder of your exercise files, open up No Obstacles HR2. And we're on page 2 here where we do see a number of paragraphs. Two of those paragraphs are much longer than the others, which are single lines. But each of these might have at least one return after them. And as you can see, the line spacing, which is the spacing between the actual lines and the paragraphs, is maybe a little bit compressed. In other words, if we were to space it out some more, it might be a little easier to read. And this can be very important, especially for longer documents where an audience has to spend a lot of time looking at the pages of your document. So let's see what we have first, and then let's make some adjustments. We'll click anywhere in the first paragraph. Now, to adjust line spacing, we go to the paragraph section of the ribbon with the Home tab selected. And it's this little guy right here. It's a double arrow pointing up and down. This is a drop-down button, and when we click this, we'll see some presets to choose from. Notice the check mark next to 1.0, which we call single spacing, and that happens to be the spacing that's being used currently in our document. It used to be the default, single spaced, but people found that it was a little bit difficult to read, and a new default came along, which was 1.15. Notice when we hover over this, there's a live preview in the background, and we get to see that indeed it is a little spaced out compared to the paragraph below, and thus a little bit easier to look at and read. Of course, if we wanted to, we could go to 1.5 spacing. That's a little too much. Double spacing. These two are typically used for printing out documents and then being able to make notes in between the lines. And then we have some other presets here that simply just space out the lines even further. We also have at the bottom a couple of options for adding space before a paragraph or after a paragraph. And you can see when we hover over these two how the paragraph shifts up and down. We'll talk about the spacing after and before paragraphs momentarily, but for now, I think 1.15 is a good option. So let's just click in our document and select everything on this page. Next, we'll go up to the line spacing drop-down and select 1.15. When we select it, you can see it is indeed a little bit more spaced out, but much easier to read. Just keep in mind that when you go from the old default of 1.0 to 1.15, 6 pages can turn into 7. So you do increase the length of your document, something to consider for very long documents that are going to be printed. But I like the looks of this so far. Now, we do have space in between our paragraphs. If we were to go after the period after the word goal here in our first paragraph and press the delete key on your keyboard, you can see what happens. We've deleted a blank line. Press delete again, and we've deleted the actual return that took us to the new paragraph. So when you hit return or enter on your keyboard, there's no extra space showing up here after that paragraph. By default, there should be. So this has been changed in the document. And what we don't want to be doing is adding extra lines by pressing enter again. So let's just take it back, and let's select all of our text again. There will be some adjusting to do. And let's go back to the line spacing button. And this time, if we wanted to, we could go to add space before or after a paragraph. You can see what happens to those two paragraphs are now separated. But we can also access all of these options plus the line spacing options by clicking Line Spacing Options. It opens up the paragraph dialog box. Now from here, you'll see what's currently set, and you'll also have the ability to make changes. Looking at the spacing before and after, it is 0 points. The new default here in Word 2013 is to have some space after a paragraph. When we click the up arrow, you can see it goes to 6 points and then to 12. The new default is actually 8. So let's just delete the 6 and type an 8 right on the keyboard. The line spacing we already changed to 1.15 from single spacing. Now another option, if you prefer, is to have space before and after a paragraph, and in that case you might want to split it up. But let's see what that looks like right now, and we can change it if need be. When we click OK, you can see sure enough we now have space here after our paragraph, even though we didn't add the extra return to achieve that. And that would mean, for example, if we wanted to create a new paragraph, let's say down here after the word ideas, we'll click right in front of the word you, press enter on your keyboard. Notice that there's an extra space added for us. So we didn't have to add that extra return. Now some people prefer to have a little space before and after a paragraph. So let's just go back. We'll select our entire page here from Dear Customer to the end of CEO. There we go. And we'll go back to that drop down in the paragraph section on the ribbon. back to line spacing options. And instead of 8 points after, let's split it up. We'll do 4 before, and we'll do 4 after. And when we click OK, it's not going to look a whole lot different on our screen, but exactly what's happening is a space is being added before a paragraph as well as after a paragraph. You can see the spacing is just a little more subtle. So that's how we adjust line spacing between lines in a paragraph as well as the spacing between paragraphs themselves here in Word 2013. Again, consider readability of your document, the type of document, and the length of your document when changing these settings.